is a presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Baltimore. We are Florida.
When Giancarlo Stanton gets going, you better hold on for the ride. Sunday, Big G busted out with a homer and 3 hits. And last night, another homer and a double. And the Fish won both games. Tonight in Los Angeles, a real test. 3-time Cy Young Award winner Clayton Kershaw is dealing for the Dodgers. In Los Angeles tonight, on an email and Twitter Tuesday, the Fish and the Dodgers, late night with the Fish. A much warmer night tonight in Los Angeles proper as the Marlins and the Dodgers continue a 4-game set. Chavez Ravine, Dodger Stadium. Miami winners last night. They've won 2 in a row. Hi, everybody. Rich Waltz along with Preston Wilson. And coinciding with that 2-game win streak, Giancarlo Stanton, a homer in each of those games. What's the difference between Stanton right now, Preston, as opposed to last week?
He looks a lot more calm in the batter's box. His feet look nice and quiet, and he's getting ready on time. And as most hitters will tell you, when you're late in your setup, bad things happen. But when you're a guy like Giancarlo Stanton and possesses the power that he does, and you're ready and on time, you're going to start putting up some monster numbers like he does when he's right.
Can you explain to me why he eats up the National League West like this?
It's just one of those things. He loves coming here. He's a West Coast guy, born in Panama City. He likes coming to this ballpark in particular. It brings back memories of when he's an 8-year-old kid out in the bleachers watching batting practice. So there's a lot of good feelings. I had it when I went to Shea Stadium, when there was a Shea Stadium. And I think every time he comes here, there's this nice sense of calm that comes over him.
Well, that calm's about to be interrupted by Clayton Kershaw. And he's not your average lefty, obviously. He's won just about every major award there is. Kershaw is a dominant force. It'll be interesting to see how the Marlins attack him tonight.
Well, I think they have a major weapon in Barry Bonds and Frank Menachino because those two guys have put together a good game plan to go against this lefty. You know one thing from Kershaw, it's going to be hard, it's going to be fast, and it's going to be nasty. But he's 0-2 this year, so he can be beat. You got to find a way to get on him.
And don't forget that the guy that's opposing Kershaw is Tom Kohler. Kohler beat Max Scherzer in the Nationals his last time out. And look at his numbers against the Dodgers in 5 starts.
Tom Kohler's one of those guys that I always like when he's pitching in that big moment. He likes going to New York and pitch. He's got pretty decent numbers there. He likes pitching here. He likes pitching against the best. And I look for him to have a good night tonight.
And we look for you to join us tonight on an email and Twitter Tuesday. Big G Live as the Marlins and the Dodgers collide in LA. On a Twitter Tuesday, and the Fish getting ready to face Clayton Kershaw. Down on the field with our Jessica Blaylock is Giancarlo Stanton.
Thanks so much, Rich. Giancarlo, you said anyone can have a good day at the plate, but now it's about being consistent. What is the most important thing that you can do to keep producing offensively?
Just staying in my zone and being on time. The two simplest things to do to keep it going.
You're warming up. Christian Yelich is riding a 6-game hitting streak. JT Realmuto has put together a couple of multi-hit nights. How encouraged are you by what you're seeing from this offense as a whole?
It's good. I think we're all coming into our season stride of our full routine and our personal discipline. I think it's kind of hard in the first couple bits sometimes to get what's going to be fully successful for yourself. So I think that's what we're coming into.
Clayton Kershaw is such a dominant pitcher. How do you approach a guy like that?
Yet again, gotta stay in your zone because he's got that deception to make you chase. So that's really what you need to do.
All right, thanks so much. Good luck tonight.
Sure, thank you.
Guys.
All right, thank you, Jessica. You saw the USC Song Girls behind her. Giancarlo Stanton, almost a USC football player at one point. K's tonight, Kohler, Kershaw, Dodgers, Marlins. Avenue. As the Marlins and the Dodgers get set to go, still some daylight here out on the West Coast. D. Gordon in the box, Clayton Kershaw on the mound, and a fastball is fouled back, and this ball game is underway. As Clayton Kershaw makes start number 5, and you see his numbers. The ERA reflects just 5 earned runs in 4 games. And you saw the walks, only 3 of them. And that fastball is up. Brian Knight calling balls and strikes. Todd Titchener, Bill Miller, Pat Hoberg on the bases. As Kershaw now 28. He's been a dominant force for 9 seasons. And he gets in on his former teammate. Gordon fouls it off. D. Gordon last night 0 for 5. The Marlins lineup has a little different look, obviously, with the lefty, but also with the return of Martin Prado. And Prado is due up second this inning. He's in the 2 spot. Yelich behind him. Almost got D. Gordon. The fastball in. Don Mattingly welcomed last night with a nice montage of video highlights of his 5 years here. It's a foul tip. Gordon stays alive. He was asked before the ballgame, Mattingly was, how that video tribute sat with him, and he said, "Oh, I didn't see it." He said he was so consumed with the game and getting ready to play that he missed the whole tribute up on the scoreboard. But he said it was a nice gesture. 2-2. Breaking ball. Gordon pops it foul and into the seats. So a D&0 for 5 last night, but the Marlins certainly had a nice offensive night, spreading the hits up and down, especially down in the order. JT Realmuto, Derek Dietrich, Danny Echeverria all down in the order with hits. 2-2. Big break and a strike. He dusted that one off on a 2-2 pitch. All right, Marlins lineup, got to keep it the same. Brought to you by U Health. Preston.
Leading off, D. Gordon, Martin Prado's batting second. Christian Yelich is in the 3-hole. Big G, who's hot, is hitting fourth. Marcelo Ozuna, JT Realmuto, and Chris Johnson packed in the middle there. You got Danny Echeverria and Tom Kohler to round out the lineup.
Strikeout number 1 for Kershaw. He has 31 now on the season. And here is Prado. And a fastball misses up, and Prado back after missing the weekend and yesterday off the paternity list. Kershaw gets a strike, and it's 1-1. Now, there are a lot of hitters that have experience against Kershaw, not many that have a lot of success, and Prado in 30 at bats is just 4 for 30 against this lefty. But he has company, and that pitch misses low.
That's a close pitch. Looked like a slider he broke out there. Some people call it a cut fastball. Looked like a slider. But he's starting to use that pitch a whole lot more to go with that curveball.
Prado up the middle. Waiting there is Chase Utley. And he gets the out. So 2 outs. Dodger defense has a different look, and it's brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Carl Crawford activated today. Jock Peterson in center. Yasiel Puig in right. Justin Turner, Adrian Gonzalez to start tonight, as well as Utley in the lineup, and Corey Seager. So all those lefty bats that were out last night are in tonight. Yasmani Grandal is behind the plate. There's Crawford, an added lefty bat off the DL. Yelich goes after a fastball and fouls it off. Christian Yelich was talking about his first meeting with Clayton Kershaw, and he said he absolutely had no chance, but improved his next time out, and he's 3 for 6 against this lefty. And Yelich has hit lefties this year, Preston. Small sample size. He's 5 for 6 against lefties this season, 3 for 6, as you see, against Kershaw. Pitchers like to hide their pitching hand. Kershaw has one of the widest gloves you will find. It's almost like a pillow.
Yeah, they want to make sure they're not giving away a grip. Sometimes by the way a pitcher's hand is turned, or the way you see like strain in the forearm, a split finger or pitches like that, you'll see more strain in the forearm.
Yelich, Kershaw knocks it down, picks it up, fires, and just gets him. Oh yeah, he won a Gold Glove as well back in 2011. Underway in Los Angeles and scoreless. California. It's a gorgeous shot. All right, Preston. Dodger lineup brought to you by UHealth Sports Medicine.
Chase Utley, Corey Seager, Justin Turner are the top three. Adrian Gonzalez, Yasiel Puig, and Yasmani Grandal are the middle. Carl Crawford, Jock Peterson, Clayton Kershaw are the bottom.
Nicely done. And Tom Kohler gets start number 4. Kohler last time out beat the Nationals and Max Scherzer. And so, as the rotation would have it, he ends up facing Kershaw here at Dodger Stadium. And his line against the Nationals, 85 pitches, gave up just the 1 run. Chase Utley, Corey Seager, and Justin Turner. And these two guys have squared off before. Utley as a Philly many times, and Kohler as a Marlin. Utley came in last night as a pinch hitter and struck out. Chase Utley, of course, a late season acquisition, and a guy that drew the attention of everybody for that slide in the postseason against the Mets. But he's off to a pretty good start this year, bouncing back from an off year last year. Pulls it foul.
Rich, when I watch Tom Kohler pitch, I look for one thing first, and that's fastball command. Because his trouble comes in when he falls behind with the fastball, and now he's got to pitch with other pitches, try to use his breaking ball to get strikes. If he has fastball command, now he can use that curveball as an out pitch as opposed to trying to get strikes with it early.
Juan Nieves, you saw him there, Marlins pitching coach, has to be pretty pleased with the starts that he's had, his last 2 starts in these wins. Wei-Yin Chen gave up just 1 earned run. Adam Conley on Sunday. That is outside, and Kohler loses Chase Utley. Defensively behind Kohler, it's brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Christian Yelich, Marcell Ozuna, Giancarlo Stanton in the outfield. Martin Prado, welcome back. Chris Johnson is over at first. D. Gordon, Danny Echeverria up the middle. JT Realmuto, who's hot at the plate, is behind the plate for Kohler. And now Seager. Very different lineup than last night for the lefty chin. And a strike to the young, up-and-coming Corey Seager, who has yet to turn 22. That's tomorrow.
He's a great-looking young talent. Baseball's #1 prospect coming into this year.
Good, sharp breaking ball by Kohler.
And this is that nasty curve I was talking about. See that big top-to-bottom break? When he gets ahead with the fastball, now he can use that more to set up other things. And now he's got Seager in a position where he can pretty much do anything. High fastball through another breaking ball. He's got him set up. So they wanted that fastball up there, didn't quite get up.
It counts 1-2. Kyle Seager, of course, is the older brother of Corey Seager, a third baseman for the Seattle Mariners. And the count stays at 1-2. Charlotte is home. 18th overall pick by the Dodgers.
I like that Kohler dialed up that last pitch. That was 93. Earlier fastballs were 90, 91.
Chase Utley's stolen base days have passed him by. His body's taken a real beating. But he is, in terms of stolen base percentage, one of the best there ever has been. 89% is his stolen base completion rate. Liner to center. Ozuna has it lined up, and he makes the catch.
Well, got away with one right there. That's a hanger that stopped right in the middle of the plate. Seager hit it well, just hit it right at Marcell Ozuna.
Justin Turner now, Dodger third baseman. Dodgers last night against Chen used the long ball to get their 2 runs. Yasiel Puig and Trace Thompson. Thompson not in the lineup tonight. Wei Chen getting his first win as a Marlin.
There's Chen there in the dugout after that great job he did last night, pitching deep into the game. Low pitch count, was very efficient, had great command. Spoke to Don Mattingly before the game, and he said he was very sharp. May have missed his spot less than 10 times all night last night. That's incredible for a guy who threw close to 100 pitches.
Remember last night we were talking about Justin Turner, how it seemed like he just changed everything. I was talking to Perry Hill today about that, and he said, you know what, you're right. The spray charts and defensive charts for Turner 4 years back are completely different than they have been the last 2 years. He went from an inside-out swing to a short uppercut pull swing and changed the trajectory, not only the balls off his bat, but also of his career. From a scrappy infielder just trying to hit it the other way to a guy with legitimate power.
I spoke to Mark McGuire, and he said one of the things that they worked on in the past was getting the bat to the front of the zone more often with him, trying to create that straight line through the pitcher, through the middle of the field, and it's causing him to get more power, get more extension, and by result of that, also pulling more balls.
I guess it's an illustration of sometimes you look at a player at age 26, 27 and say he is what he is. Sometimes that's not true. Breaking ball misses down low.
It's also why you can't play baseball on paper. You actually have to sometimes look at guys because they may be playing differently. You know, you may see a guy one series and he's got a sore shoulder and you don't know it, but he can't pull the ball. Now you face him again and he's healthy. All of those charts are going to be wrong. So you always have to make sure, even though you have that information on paper, that you give it the eyeball test. Get a look at players, see what they're doing on that day.
Dave Roberts watching. Utley runs, pitches up, and that's ball 4 to Turner. So a couple of walks here in the first, and you get into some bats that can do real damage. And it's Adrian Gonzalez and Yasiel Puig.
Well, this is definitely not the inning that Tom Kohler wanted to have for 2 reasons. First, he walks guys, and with that, the pitch count gets up very quickly. With 16 pitches now in the first inning and only with 1 out. So he's got to try to get a ground ball right here.
So here's Gonzalez. He came in as a pinch hitter last night. He struck out. In the dirt, Real Muto fires to third, and it kicks off of Prado, and it rolls out of play. And that's going to be a costly error. JT Real Muto. The Dodgers have a 1-0 lead. And in a Kershaw game, you can ill afford mistakes.
That's one of those plays that maturity's just got to take care of. He's a young catcher. When the ball gets away like that, you just got to eat it sometimes. He wasn't going to throw him out. Only bad things happen when you have to try to rush a throw like that. Throw it underhanded sidearm. That's one of those plays in the future. JT Real Muto is just going to stick in his pocket, have guys at second and third, and just deal with it from there. You don't want to compound the problems.
And I think because of Kershaw, the infield has crept close for Adrian Gonzalez. Utley has scored. Turner now at third. This early in the game, oftentimes you see the infield back, and when a manager is saying, I've got confidence that my team's going to score some runs tonight.
That's a very good point. Like you said, the infield will be back, but when you know you're facing a guy who has a 1.5 ERA, scoring opportunities are few, throughout the game. So you got to try to limit the damage. Hope for something good to happen here.
Gonzalez pops it foul and out of play. Adrian Gonzalez, one of the sweet swings in baseball. This is his 5th year with the Dodgers. It seems odd. He's been with the Dodgers as long as he was with the Padres. 5 years with San Diego, 2 years with Boston. And a fastball that misses in. Kohler staring in a bit of disbelief. Thought he had the corner, but he missed it. It's a good call by Brian Knight.
Fielder, number 66, Yasiel Puig.
Close pitch. Agons just wanted to make sure, veteran hitters are smart. They're like, okay, I don't want to show the umpire up before I flip the bat, make sure I get the call, and then take my way down to first base.
Three first-inning walks. A throwing error. The Marlins, of course, had some issues in San Francisco with first-inning walks and first-inning runs. And high pitch counts as well. Speaking of that, the Marlins today did make a move. And Jared Cozart, who was one of those guys, and in a couple of starts had first-inning issues with control. Jared Cozart has been optioned to New Orleans with Martin Prado reinstated from the paternity list. And the Marlins have announced that Justin Nicolino will start tomorrow. So another roster move due with Nicolino coming off to make the start. Fastball's in, and it's 1-1 to Puig.
If we've learned anything by watching Don Mattingly manage, is that he doesn't like guys that go out walk batters. He wants strikes. In spring training, when they sent Ellerton down to the minor leagues, Barraclaw, one of the reasons was he wanted guys that throw strikes, and Jared Cozart was leading the league in pitches per inning at 21 pitches per inning with a lot of walks, and that's just not going to make your manager happy.
Real Muto, it trickles by, runner comes home and scores. Turner charges in, and this has got to be a frustrating one for everybody involved for the Marlins. Tom Kohler hasn't given up a hit, and the Dodgers have 2 runs. That's a wild pitch. And with 1 out, Puig's got Gonzalez in scoring position. Liner to left. Yelich is there, and he makes the catch. So 2 balls hit hard to the outfield, 3 walks, 2 wild pitches. A couple old friends out there, D. Gordon and Adrian Gonzalez.
This is one of those innings that if you get through it without any more damage, hopefully you go in and try to regroup. But it's been a bad mix so far. Walking guys, and when you do throw it in the strike zone, they're squaring it up.
Oh, 1 to Yasmani Grandal, the former Miami Hurricane. Wild pitches, most in the National League. Atlanta, Miami right behind, just 1 back. And Kohler misses down low. 28 pitches, 3 walks, 2 wild pitches, 1 throwing error, and that was on JT Realmuto. Down that left field line, that's deep and in the corner, and foul. Just foul. The Dodger dugout, after watching it go, immediately looked at their third base coach, Chris Woodward, and said, "What did you see?" Because from their angle, it's hard to tell whether it was fair or foul. Even our angle up here was hard.
That's extremely close. That's about as close as it gets. But you see the ball pass on the outside of the pole. So they got it right. Ball never disappears. That means it's outside.
Count 1-2 to Grandal. Carl Crawford is on deck. And right now the fastball command is not there for Kohler. Swing and a miss. And a strikeout of Grandal. 2 runs on no hits. And it's 2-0 Dodgers. Sponsor of Marlins baseball. In Los Angeles, the Dodgers drew 3 walks, had a couple of wild pitches, and a Marlins error, and they have 2 runs right now. Tom Kohler's not giving up a hit. And Clayton Kershaw, with those 2 runs, goes back to work. Giancarlo Stanton, Marcell Ozuna, and JT Realmuto. Emails and tweets. We'll throw out our ceremonial first email. Actually, our first tweet is from Alex. It's his 5th year trying to get on Twitter Tuesday. Stanton fouls it back, and he wants to know, how long can you expect Cozart to be in AAA?
Well, I think the answer to that is when he's able to throw strikes more consistently. I think they definitely want him to be part of the plan that's going on here. He's just got to work himself back.
Stanton on a busted bat, it sounded like. Turner gobbles it up and gets the out at first base. So Kershaw with his 3rd ground ball out already. Our Twitter Tuesday is driven by Ford. You can tweet us, email us, hashtag it, Late Night with the Fish. Yeah, Don Mattingly said exactly what you said, and that he's in the long-range plans. They just need him to go down and throw strikes. He was averaging a walk an inning. Ozuna got a fastball, gets it in the air. Crawford back at the track, cuts to his left and can't get it. It bangs off the wall. Ozuna's still running hard, and he's on his way to 3rd. You could tell from the get-go that Carl Crawford did not have that lined up in his sights.
Catcher number 11.
Outfielders have a telltale sign when they don't see the ball well. They tend to zigzag a little bit, and you see him running back now. Then he starts to cut across. He's taking those short, choppy steps. That's a sign that an outfielder doesn't have a bead on it, and he's not quite comfortable with that play. Good swing by Ozuna. That ball's inside. He got the hand through, didn't hook it down the line, drove it into that gap. You know what? He had a good thing going in batting practice today. He was talking to Lenny Harris, talking to Barry Bonds. He said he's going to get Clayton Kershaw today, and well, look at that. First at bat, got himself a knock.
Now let's see if JT Realmuto can drive him in. Infield in. Realmuto is coming off a couple really nice games. He is 6 for his last 8, 2 hits last night. including a line drive out, and of course that 4-for-4 game on Sunday in San Francisco with a homer. But a chance to get a run here, a run back against Kershaw. Ozuna at third, infield still in. There's that breaking ball, and Grandal smothers it. Well, to prepare for Kershaw, who's, if he keeps this up, is headed to the Hall of Fame. Real Muto Ozuna took batting practice today against a guy that put up Hall of Fame numbers in his career. Barry Bonds threw batting practice to the starters because Bonds throws lefty.
You know, it's one of those things where even as a professional baseball player, when you get to have Barry Bonds throw you batting practice, it's a pretty surreal moment. You got one of the best players, if not the best player to ever play the game, throwing you batting practice.
1-2 coming to Real Muto. Kershaw looking for a strikeout. This is Giancarlo Stanton. Look at the tie by Preston Wilson behind the cage. That's pretty sweet. There's Bonds throwing the lefty BP. Stanton, of course, his usual show here in Los Angeles. Real Muto has let 2 of those breaking balls go in the dirt. And that one is buried in the dirt.
That's a good take. Clayton Kershaw has one of the best breaking balls in baseball. And for Real Muto to lay off of it like he has, that means he's seen him pretty well.
And with Kershaw, you never know what you're going to get here, 3-2. Ozuna 90 feet away. Fastball, and he struck him out at 92, and that's a big punch out for Kershaw. Here comes Chris Johnson.
And that's what makes Clayton Kershaw so tough. When you got 2 strikes, he'll throw anything. He throws a curveball 31% of the time. He throws a fastball 36% of the time. And then a slider 32% of the time. So those are all pretty even ratios. And that's why hitters have such a tough time, especially when they're behind in the count, because you have no idea what you're going to get.
Chris Johnson getting the start. Johnson has seen a lot of Kershaw, but just 1 for 12 against him. So Chris gets a start, and it happens to be against the 3-time Cy Young Award winner. Last 5 years, Kershaw has won 3 Cy Youngs, and he's finished 2nd and 3rd in the other 2 votings. How about that?
That's dominance.
Some would say that's money. And it is. He's making $34 million this year. It's the 3rd year of a 7-year, $215 million contract, of which he can opt out after the 2018 season.
200 what?
215 million.
Sure, if I got a team full of gummy bears, I'm playing.
No opt out from you, huh? No. Gummy bears. 1-2. Dallas, Texas native. Ozuna still at third base, and as you saw in the Real Muto at bat, even with the runner at third, Kershaw doesn't hesitate to bounce that sharp slider in the dirt with Grandal behind the plate. There's the breaking ball, and down goes Johnson. The triple by Ozuna doesn't budge from third. It's 2-0 Dodgers. on top in the bottom of the second. MLB.com ballpark app, the perfect complement to your visit to Marlins Park. Maps got the menus in the ballpark. Order food from your seats, even access and display your game tickets for entry into the ballpark. The ballpark app gets you special offers and gifts today. Get the MLB.com ballpark app. Clayton Kershaw got the towel on that left arm. He's going to have to take it off pretty soon. He's due up third in the inning as Carl Crawford lashes it foul. Carl Crawford, remember, part of that big trade with Josh Beckett, Adrian Gonzalez. Crawford just 21 at bats. And he takes a fastball in, coming off the disabled list tonight. Lower back soreness.
I spoke to Carl yesterday doing batting practice. He was just like, just keep having these nagging type injuries.
He rips that one into right field. And so Crawford, a solid hit to right. And there goes the no-hitter. Because we just had an email from Anibal. Not Anibal Sanchez, but Anibal wants to know, could Kohler still get a no-hitter? The Dodgers got 2 runs on 3 walks, a couple wild pitches, and an error in that first inning. But no hits. Now Jock Peterson.
Well, for one thing, as a base stealer, that was not a very big lead that Carl Crawford had. He was about a step and a half off the bag. I would expect him to have a much bigger lead than he's got right now. I mean, his front foot is barely getting to that cut.
Well, when you have lower back soreness, it's hard to be the base stealer that you once were. Crawford, a speedster out of Houston.
Even if you're not stealing a base, though, you still get far enough out there. I mean, he got back too easy. Because even when you're not stealing the base, there are other things that come into play. Breaking up a double play at second base, even though you can't do it as aggressively as you used to. Going from first to third on a base hit, he can still run well enough to do that. And an extra step there is going to help you get there sooner when you do start running.
480 career stolen bases Peterson takes in. And the count is 2-1. Carl Crawford has 4 stolen base crowns, all with the Rays. His highest season total was 60 with the Rays. He did not win the title that year. And a strike. Keeping him on the field and keeping him healthy for the Dodgers has been an issue. 69 games last year, 105 in 2014. Marlins infield, severe shift, breaking ball and no swing. And it's full.
Look at the check swing there, and it's significant that you mentioned shifts, Rich. The Marlins have deployed the fewest amount of defensive shifts in the league at only 26. The Houston Astros, 341.
In talking to some statisticians as well, they point out the Marlins lead the league, though, in mini shifts. Not the dramatic everybody over to one side of the boat, but everybody 10 feet to their left. So I think defining shift and mini shift, apparently the Marlins at the top of one list and at the bottom of another.
That's just another stat for someone to create.
Runner goes in the air. Yelich is there. And he makes the catch. If you can't watch games on television, you now stream games live on your mobile device. Go to your app store, download the free Fox Sports Go app, log in, and stream the Marlins wherever you go. And here is Clayton Kershaw with about 5 minutes before first pitch. You and I were standing here in the broadcast booth, and one of the fine technicians that work on our telecast looked out at the crowd and marveled. Kershaw, base hit, left field. And marveled that there were more people here last night for Clayton Kershaw's bobblehead night than there are here tonight for Clayton Kershaw.
That's true. It was absolutely packed here last night. I didn't see an empty seat really around the ballpark. And tonight there aren't quite as many people here, and the weather was worse yesterday. So, it, you know, ipso facto, it's all about the bobblehead.
I love it when you use legal jargon. Here's Utley now with runners first and second and one out. And it's Tom Kohler, been somewhat of a struggle here. 3 walks in that first inning, couple singles here. Utley's second look. And then you've got Corey Seager and Justin Turner. Breaking ball, comebacker. Kohler in the dirt. I'm not sure if he kept his foot on. The Dodgers certainly will look at it. Echeverria did all he could to keep the foot on and keep the ball from getting into center field. Kershaw thinks he's out. He's on his way out. Crowd just saw the replay. Here's our first look. And I think he got it. I think he got it. From the back of the base, you could see the toe drag across and stay on the base. And the Dodgers are looking at it right now. It's Bob Guerin, their bench coach. I don't know that there's enough to overturn that. Yeah, Dave Roberts says, all right. No further questions. That's a terrific play. Because with a runner going from second to third, Echeverria has to keep the ball in the infield. At the same time, he's trying to get the out. And just keeping that toe on there.
You know, last night, David Phelps made a great play on the infield, double up, get the double play, get himself out of a tough inning. Defensive plays by a pitcher really make a big difference in the game. And right there, Kohler wasn't able to convert the out. I mean, he got the out, but the bad throw stopped the double play.
That's true. At the corners, Seager lined to center his first time up. Young shortstop was thrown right into it last year. Fastball in. He appeared in 27 games down the stretch. Back to the screen. As well, he ended up playing in all 5 games. Remember, that was a Philly throwback, turn back the clock infield last year with Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley. Only Utley remains. But in the postseason, Seager was the guy that was at shortstop. Two and two. And the pitch count is approaching 50. Well, what a contrast. And as you see Turner on deck, what a contrast for this double play combination. Seager turns 22 tomorrow. Utley is 37 and has been through the wars. Change up. And Kohler misses it. 3-2. Bouncer finds Gordon. who gets the outs. And Kohler strands 2 after 2. It's 2-0 Dodgers. Fox Sports Florida, brought to you by Jeep. Visit Jeep.com to learn more. By Bank United, switch to Bank United today. Visit us at bankunited.com or call 877-779-2265. By your local Toyota dealers, let's go places. And by Southwest Airlines, transparency, low fares, nothing to hide. Dodger Stadium. Adeiny Echeverria against Clayton Kershaw. First pitch swinging, fouls it back. Rich Waltz, Preston Wilson, Jessica Blaylock, emails and tweets tonight. Big breaking ball and a 2-hopper. That's bobbled, and Seager recovers and gets the out. Auto Nation gives you the scouting report on Clayton Kershaw. What you got?
Well, he's a stingy guy on one hand, does not give up a whole lot of hits with runners in scoring position. And on the other hand, he's very giving. Charitable heart, does a big thing with ping pong for purpose. Great charity event that he holds here. So it's a complex guy, man. He's really complicated.
Yeah. He has a complicated trophy room at home with Cy Young's, MVP, Gold Glove. Kohler up, D. Gordon to follow. Tom has a hit and 4 at-bats this year, and he takes a fastball for a strike. Email from DJ in Port St. Lucie. I think Giancarlo Stanton can hit 50 home runs if he stays healthy this year. And the second part is, what do you think about the Heat's playoff chances? Heat now tied 2-2 in their series against Charlotte.
Well, I think Giancarlo can definitely hit 50. He's got that rare power. No ballpark can hold him, and he hits the ball to all fields.
Kohler strikes out, and the first time through, Clayton Kershaw has 4 strikeouts. All right, you asked for the trophy case, or at least I referenced it. There it is. That's the resume. You know, when you're Clayton Kershaw 2 on your resume, you don't even have to put references.
And I'm going to add something to that. He's led the National League in ERA 4 out of the last 5 years. He's also led the National League in strikeouts 3 out of the last 5 years.
Zips in a fastball for a strike. if you're looking for one blip, one thing that he doesn't have on his resume, you know, you put the good stuff on the resume, right? His postseason numbers. 5 postseasons, 2-6 record, and a 4.59 ERA. But tonight he is nasty, and Clayton Kershaw goes 1-2-3 in the third.
Los Angeles, where the Dodgers lead at 2-0. We'll talk about sports worlds colliding earlier today. Several members of the LA Kings were here at Dodger Stadium to take batting practice. They got in the cages, they had a little bit of fun. I don't think that any of the Dodgers players have to worry that their job's in jeopardy. Those swings aren't very pretty, but a couple of guys there just having a good time today at BP. They're friends with some of the Dodgers players, so that is how that got set up. But guys, not a lot of pretty swings there.
No, but you know, hockey players can hit. Hockey players can certainly play golf. Well, maybe not.
It's one thing a lot of athletes learn, that how hard it is to hit a baseball. I remember I was playing with the Marlins back when they were the Florida Marlins, and basketball player Eddie House came out to take batting practice, and he was talking all this mess before he got in the cage, and he was very humbled by the time he got out of the cage. He realized how hard it is to hit a baseball.
Tom Kohler has an out here in the bottom of the third. Adrian Gonzalez takes a fastball at the knees. Yasiel Puig is next. Dodgers have a couple of hits and a couple of runs. One and two. I've had a few fans wanting to know if Giancarlo Stanton is in the home run derby, would Barry Bonds pitch to him? Gonzalez, deep. Yelich makes the catch. And there's 2 outs. And I think the answer would be no, because most of the time you like a catcher to throw. Catchers have that short arm. They throw the four-seamer quite well. So my guess is if Stanton were in the home run derby, it would not be Bonds that would pitch to him. It would be someone more along the lines of a catcher. It was Mike Redmond who threw to Stanton the last time he was in the home run derby. Puig.
Usually the best guys to throw batting practice are, like you said, catchers and infielders. Outfielders usually have that long throwing motion. Everything is high. I throw terrible batting practice. I feel like I frustrate kids if I try to throw batting practice to them because everything is high because the release point is different. When you're trying to throw a ball 150 feet, 200 feet, your release point's got to be higher as opposed to just throwing the ball across the diamond. You can have that 3/4 lower release point and get the ball there and it not tail on you.
Oh, 2-pitch. It's fouled off by Puig. You know, come to think of it, that's why oftentimes when you have a player in high school and college who was a pitcher/hitter and ends up going to the big leagues as a hitter, he's in the outfield. He's not necessarily an infielder, maybe a first baseman, but more than likely he's out in the outfield. Good pitch by Kohler, came right in on Puig. And a nice inning for Tom Kohler. 2-0 Dodgers. Just past 11 o'clock on the East Coast, late night with a fish. And the Marlins up against Clayton Kershaw. Traffic is thinning out. This is definitely one place where you want that app on your phone or your tablet that not only gives you maps but gives you traffic. Although today I popped mine on and all I saw was red.
Yeah, if there's one bugaboo about LA, it's definitely the traffic around here.
Here's Martin Prado, and he takes outside. The Marlins have managed one hit against Kershaw. It was a Marcell Ozuna triple. Five strikeouts for the lefty.
Well, strikeouts are kind of Kershaw's thing. He came into this game with 30 strikeouts and 30 innings pitched. I like the little foot tap he has after he does the high leg kick. Then he's got that little tap with his foot, and I think it makes the batter hesitate just a little bit.
You know, I was talking to Chris Johnson about facing him, and the one thing he said is the funkiness, once he gets through it, his release point is, I don't want to say common, but not as funky as the first part of the delivery. He said if you can kind of ignore the leg and the hitch and all that, then all of a sudden it feels like a lefty that you've seen before. Then he said, until the ball comes out of his hand, and then it really changes. He said, man, it just every pitch he's got is a premium pitch for him, and he'll throw any pitch at any time. He is a fierce competitor. And he strikes out Martin Prado. 3 strikeouts in a row for Kershaw. Sweet Reynolds, Marlins Park, right behind home plate. And you can put a group from 16 to 60 in there. VIP service, food, beverage options, 1-877-MARLINS, or go to marlins.com/suites. Prado strikes out. Here's Yelich. He bounced to first. His first time up. Yelich cracks that one over the middle. Utley backing up. Gets him. It feels like it's either a strikeout or a ground out tonight. As you look at the Marlins box score, and the Ozuna triple is the only ball hit in the air. Everything else is a ground ball out or a strikeout. 5 ground ball outs, 6 strikeouts. And here is Stanton, who bounced to third. And Kershaw trying to get ahead with a fastball. Misses away.
Kershaw is doing what successful pitchers do. He's throwing strikes, but those strikes are on the very edges of the plate.
Danny wants to know, headed to Los Angeles this summer to watch a game at Dodger Stadium, any seat recommendations? Where would you sit, Preston Wilson, in this your second game ever here as a broadcaster, plenty as a player? Where would you sit if you had a chance to sit? Would it be next to Mary Hart? Although I don't see her tonight.
I like the level just above that lowest level right there.
Where the beach ball just came down from, right?
Yes.
Swing and a miss. We'll expound upon that. Kershaw doesn't give you a whole lot of time for fluff. He carves up the fish in the fourth. Pair of strikeouts and a ground ball out. He's punched out 7-0. Sports Florida is brought to you by Jeep. Visit Jeep.com to learn more. And by Checkers, fast foodies know the deal. Clayton Kershaw has been, well, Clayton Kershaw in the first 4 innings. 7 strikeouts and just 1 hit allowed. Tom Kohler, meanwhile, had a major wobble in that first inning. 3 walks, couple wild pitches. JT Realmuto had a throwing error, and that's how the Dodgers got their 2 runs. Kohler gave up 2 hits, but not a run in the second, and really settled in the third. We'll see if Tom can push forward and and accelerate the start, get it into the 5th, 6th inning. Yasmani Grandal struck out first time up. And a breaking ball is a strike. All right, Preston, where would you sit in this ballpark? Danny wants to know. Danny also notes that there's a lot more levels in this ballpark. There's 9 of them. There's 9 levels to Dodger Stadium, including suites and press box and all that.
Well, I think I would sit in that second level, not the very low level where Mary Hart was sitting last night, but the seats just above that. I think that gives me the best view of the field, can see everything, get the full spectrum of what's going on. I like that second ring there.
1-2. Johnson collects, steps. Now, last night we were talking about the fact that this ballpark was actually built in a ravine, and our John Solser, our producer, went to the Los Angeles County Library today, pulled out the microfiche, navigated the Dewey Decimal System, and look at these pictures. How cool is this? It was an actual ravine, and they had to cut the ballpark and the levels into the ravine as they built it. This is really amazing stuff.
It's one of those engineering marvels that you look at and you say, how in the world did they do that? They carved it into the actual landscape.
And that's why there are 9 different levels. And to exit the ballpark, if you're on the 3rd level, you can't just walk out the back of the ballpark because you're walking right into the ravine. This is a great old shot.
Yes, you got to go up to be at street level.
Right, you got to go up to be at street level. But if you walk towards the outfield, eventually the ravine is going to subside and you can exit, say, down the left field line. There it is. Look at that. I love those old school cars. You could just see Maury Wills stealing a base. Right?
Yeah, it's something about photos of old baseball, whether it's just a stadium or the old baseball being played. It strikes a note right with you.
Willie Davis.
Got some players in this ballpark play for this team. Roy Campanella.
I'll tell you a guy that played for this team and won just about every major award. Cy Young, MVP, Rookie of the Year. Don Newcomb was here last night, and he's here tonight. Last night he was on the field. He wanted to meet Giancarlo Stanton, and he had a Dodger representative with him and walked over and introduced himself to Giancarlo Stanton.
Yes, I was on the field when that happened, and that was it's one of those special moments where the old connects with the new. It was a lot of fun to see, and he sought out Giancarlo Stanton. He asked where he was. He walked around, came and shook his hand and spoke to him for a few minutes. It was a nice moment. We were talking about MVPs and Cy Young. I learned something today talking to Dave Van Horn. Mike Marshall in 1974 had a great season. Won the Cy Young Award out of the bullpen. 200 innings out of the bullpen, 100+ appearances with a 2.24 ERA. When I saw that, I said, that's awesome, but it will never happen again.
As a closer, you're right. That was the era where closers would pitch 2-3 innings. The Raleigh Fingers. In fact, Fingers opposed Marshall and the Dodgers in the World Series in '74.
Now you got guys having 70 appearances and having 75 innings. And he had 200 innings out of the bullpen.
That's Echeverria and Ozuna, and it's Ozuna. It's a mile-high pop-up off the bat of Jock Peterson.
Number 22, Clayton Kershaw.
So 2 outs. And here is Kershaw. Now we had Ron Grolnick is our Director of Quality Control tonight, and a Los Angeles native, and swears that the best place to sit in this ballpark is in the left field bleachers.
Well, if anybody would know, he'd know.
Yes, a no-hit aficionado is Ron Grolnick. So he knows all about Dodger history, and that's where he used to sit and get souvenirs when Ron Say, Davey Lopes, Dusty Baker were taking batting practice in the 70s.
Well, now that you got guys like Giancarlo Stanton, you can stand behind the bleachers and still possibly get a ball.
That's true. backed by the Dodger gift shop. Kershaw single back in the second. And a strike. I had no clue that John Sulcer actually had a library card, but he did.
It's pretty impressive. I mean, that's doing some work.
Right center, and Kershaw is going to drive home Carl Crawford.
Speaking of doing work, that's an absolute laser in the gap by Clayton Kershaw. Talk about doing it all. Pitching, high strikeout count, and now driving in a run to help himself. I mean, that's a good short stroke from a pitcher. That ball's in the middle of the plate, but he put a great short swing on it. Look at his short, compact swing right there. No stride, through the bat head.
Now the Marlins at the start of this road trip were hurt by pitchers swinging the bat. Jeff Samardzija had a big hit. Jake Peavy as well. Peavy had a couple of hits. Samardzija drove in 2. And it's Utley at the top of the order. Samardzija actually drove in 3 runs with 2 hits. Good breaking ball for a strike. And of the Dodger runs tonight, all 3 reach base by walks. Jam shot and a pop-up back behind the mound. Echeverria calls it and takes it, but the Dodgers add on, and it's Clayton Kershaw himself. Sponsor of Miami Marlins baseball. It's a busy place, LAX. In the 5th, Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers shutting out Miami. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow night, Wednesday Night Showdown, presented by La Lechonera. Justin Nicolino, in case you're just joining us. Justin Nicolino will be joining the Marlins. Scott Kazmir for the Dodgers, or as the PA guy says, for the Dodgers. Long-time public address voice here at Dodger Stadium. Marcell Ozuna, JT Realmuto, Chris Johnson. Ozuna hit a high fly ball to the wall in left center that Carl Crawford had difficulties with. Got a piece of it, but it bounced off his glove. And it went for a triple. So Ozuna now has 2 doubles and 2 triples this year.
I know we talked about that route, but it was a difficult ball to catch. But it definitely was not a good route that Carl Crawford took to that baseball.
You would think, too, that for Kershaw's start, we would get more stars and starlets out from Hollywood to watch. Wow, Ozuna turns on one, and Turner gets the glove up and makes the catch.
That was an absolute rocket. Justin Turner does a good job getting the glove up to catch that. But Marcell Ozuna, he said in batting practice he was going to swing the bat well. And so far tonight, 2 at bats, 2 hard hit balls.
Here is JT Realmuto. And that's into the seats right behind home plate. We usually find the movie stars, television stars, the rich and famous, in those yellow seats which are behind home plate. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Powers Booth. With, I guess, Red Dawn, Deadwood.
I remember him in Deadwood. He was really good on that.
Apparently he was also in MacGruber, but I don't recall that. Here's the 0-2. That's a high pop-up. Kershaw's looking for help, and he gets it with Gonzalez. And he makes the catch. But we will keep looking, folks. We will find more stars before the night is done. Geico presents a Marlins moment. Who's this stylish lefty on the mound back in 2009?
Cody Ross, throwing a scoreless 9th inning. As a hitter, you got to be upset that you don't get a hit off a position player.
Well, Raul Ibanez hit it 400 feet, so that was it. Honeyball Sanchez still charting pitches in the 9th. That's a nice touch. And here's Johnson. Look at the reaction by Kershaw as he missed for that fastball, cursing himself. Ian from New Jersey wants to know, do you have any funny Vin Scully stories or a favorite Vin Scully quote? Need to think about that one. We are on now Dodger Stadium on Vin Scully Avenue. Oh, he's got the pink. He's rocking the pink with the pocket square. He looks like you, Preston Wilson.
You know what? The man does it all. When you sound like he does and dress like he does, you get your own avenue, Rich.
You know, the impressive thing is he gets mail on his own avenue. I actually do have an offbeat Vin Scully story, but I can't tell it. Vin is the great storyteller. He always knows with 2 outs, you don't start a story. Even though the count is 2-1. And it's fouled at the plate. It's 2-2. He'll retire at the end of the season. 67th year with the Dodgers. 3 perfect games, 19 no-hitters. His call of Hank Aaron's 715th is incredible, and it's not one that people have heard a lot of. If you have a chance tonight, Google it and listen to his call of that historic home run. A swing and a miss. We'll talk more Vin Scully when we get back. Right now, Clayton Kershaw is dealing.
2 of a 4-game series between the Dodgers and the Marlins. It is also a Twitter and email Tuesday driven by your South Florida Ford dealers. We appreciate all of you staying up late with us for some baseball on the West Coast. So tonight's special hashtag is Late Night with the Fish. Be sure to use that on all of your tweets and emails. Your tweets can go to @FoxMarlins. Those emails can go to foxmarlins@gmail.com and use that hashtag Late Night with the Fish. Guys?
Thank you, Jessica. Tom Kohler into the bottom of the 5th, halfway through in a game dominated by Kershaw. And Corey Seager pulls one foul. So we were talking Vin Scully before we went, and I've urged you, if you have a chance during the game or even after the game, to Google and listen to Scully's call. It was he was, of course, doing the Dodgers at the time, of Henry Aaron's 715th home run, and you hear the great Milo Hamilton, the late Milo Hamilton's call, and you know there's a new home run king, and his name is Henry Aaron. That's the call that everybody hears. But if you listen to Scully's call, it's just absolute pure genius for a couple of reasons. He calls the home run, and then he really lets the crowd just run, and you can really hear and feel the moment, the relief and the joy in the crowd in Atlanta. But then Scully artfully captures the moment, the social impact of Henry Aaron breaking that record in the Deep South. And he does it all in about 30 to 45 seconds, and it's poetic. It's just perfect. So if you have a chance, Google that. I don't know if you've heard it.
I've watched that clip, and he laid out for over 2 minutes, wasn't it? And just letting the crowd noise just go through. Just you could feel the emotion with him not saying a word.
Right, but the way he captured the scene at home plate with the parents of Henry Aaron, and capturing what it meant to America, what it meant to Aaron, what it meant to baseball. All good stuff. Now, the other emailer wanted to know if we had any funny Vin Scully stories. You got any? Nothing? All right, here's mine. I am a young broadcaster with the Seattle Mariners. I do post-game and pre-game on television. I fill in on play-by-play. And one day, interleague play, the Dodgers come to Seattle, and I'm sitting in the booth behind the great Hall of Famer Dave Niehaus. And in those days, guys like Niehaus and Scully didn't get a chance to talk much because they're in different leagues. Interleague play was still relatively new. So the Dodgers come to town, and Vin comes into the booth to say hello to Dave. They didn't get to see each other in spring training either because Seattle trained in the West. Dodgers were, at the time, in Florida. And Scully walks in, ball in the air, and Real Muto will make the catch. And two legends, two Hall of Famers start to talk. Niehaus with the gravelly voice, Vin with that great sing-song voice that he has. And I'm just in awe. And I'm listening, I'm going, my gosh, that's Vin Scully. I can't believe it. And all of a sudden, Vin starts to tell a story to Dave, and he swears. He lets out a stream of words that he can't use on television. He's not on the air. And to hear it in Vin Scully's voice, I almost cried. It was like, I can't believe he's human. So that's my best Vin Scully story. He walked out of the booth and looked at me and said, well, hi, son, how are you? And out he went. I couldn't say a word because
Remember that, folks, that day Vin Scully broke Rich Walsh's heart. Oh, man.
Adrian Gonzalez is at the plate. 3-0, Dodgers on top. I mean, it wasn't like a sailor or anything, but when Vin Scully uncorks a few words like that, in that voice, it had a profound impact on a young broadcaster. 1-2 to Gonzalez. And it's on the corner. Nice pitch by Kohler. That finishes off the Dodgers in the 5th. On to the 6th. Marlins trailing at 3-0. Late night with the Fish from Los Angeles. Last night was Clayton Kershaw bobblehead night. Tonight, the real thing is in action, and he's been impressive with Preston Wilson and Jessica Blaylock. Rich Waltz with you. A fastball from Kershaw for a strike to Adeiny Echeverria. Miguel Rojas is on deck, and so it looks like Tom Kohler has reached the end of his night. Kershaw looks like he's just warming up. He's thrown 62 pitches and has 8 strikeouts. He's given up 1 hit and hasn't walked anybody. Yikes. You can join the Fish family today. Prorated full season plans start at just $6 a game. Half season plans, 3 great 20-game mini plans. All season ticket plans include entry into the Fish family loyalty program, and it guarantees access to the 2017 All-Star Game at Marlins Park. Go to marlins.com/season tickets. Here's Rojas, who just happens to be a pinch-a-penny pinch hitter tonight. High and foul and out of reach. So 8 strikeouts right now for Kershaw. Ball and a strike. Gordon's on deck. And a busted bat and a base hit floats down the left field line. Rojas around first, and he's going to easily get in with a double. And so Miguel Rojas, a pinch hit double with 1 out here in the 6th.
You don't have to hit it hard, just got to hit it where they ain't. Ball got in on him a little bit, but it was up enough that he was able to throw it over the infield, got himself a double. Miguel Rojas continues to show his worth for this ball club with that great defensive play made last night. Come in and get yourself a pinch hit double off one of the toughest pitchers in the game.
And a former teammate. Remember, he was part of the trade that brought D. Gordon to Miami. And here is Gordon. He struck out in the 1st and in the 3rd. Nico points out that Cody Ross threw a perfect game in high school as a pitcher, so it makes sense that he would throw a scoreless inning for the Fish. Roderick wants to know, Preston, what is your favorite Dodger Stadium memory, aside from the Dodger dog you just ordered? Your favorite memory as a player? Gordon swings and misses. He's had a rough ride against Kershaw. Cody Iggy.
Well, my favorite memory is really at the start of my career, early 1999. I came up late 98. Early 1999, I got a pinch hit opportunity against Chan-Ho Park, and I hit a 3-run pitch hit home run opposite field into the right field bleachers, about 10-15 rows deep. And after that game, I became an everyday player. It was sometime in the late May, I think it was like May 23rd, something like that, in 1999 when that happened. And from that day on, I was an everyday player in the major leagues.
That's a good memory. Off of Kershaw, Gordon running, and he beats it. Wow, D. Gordon. He seemed halfway through to just stick it in another gear once he saw it trickle away from Kershaw, and he sprinted across the finish line in front of the baseball.
This is not normal, people. This ball was a one-hopper off the pitcher. He got to it quickly and had no chance. Right about there, it is on.
I love the high step. Gordon, of course, was not a football player, but a basketball player in high school. But still, he's got that last 10 yards of a kickoff return down.
I love the way he plays with such joy and happiness. Baseball needs more of that.
Here's Prado now. Prado has bounced out and struck out. He takes a fastball for a strike. Cricket brings you something to smile about. He does play with a real joy for the game.
And it's genuine. It's not forced. It's not pointed at anyone. There's no malice in it. He just genuinely loves playing baseball.
Can you do a British accent? One fan tweets wants to hear you critique Kershaw's mechanics in a British accent.
I have a hard enough time doing that in an American accent.
But if you had a British accent, you could do soccer. Up the middle into center field. That's a base hit for Prado. And Rojas is around third, and he scores. And Miami puts together 3 consecutive hits against Kershaw, who hasn't given up many hits or runs this year. And the big bats are coming up now with Yelich and Stanton.
One of the few mistakes Kershaw's made. That ball's right down the middle of the plate. Martin Prado, back off paternity list, got a break, and now he comes back and drives in a big run against Clayton Kershaw. You know, being a dad, I'm glad they've instated that in baseball, that the guys get a couple days to go away to have the birth of your child.
Martin Prado, a proud father of a daughter, Martina. Yelich has bounced out twice, back to the mound and up the middle to Chase Utley. Prado, who, remember, we documented had not had much success against Kershaw, is now 5 for 33 against him. We got Gordon, great speed at second. And Yelich fights off a fastball. It's 2-1. Ben wants to know. Wants to know what Kershaw's going to throw to Christian Yelich. 2-1. We'll get to Ben's question after this Yelich at bat. It's 2-2. Yelich on base in every game this year. 7 doubles, a homer. He's driven in 7. See what pitch he gets. The 2-2 from Kershaw. Fastball line into left field. That's a base hit. D. Gordon around third on his way home. And Miami has a couple against Kershaw. And Christian Yelich drives home another. Yelich has had an incredible run against lefties this season. He's now 6 for 9 against left-handed pitching.
Clayton Kershaw is definitely not as sharp as he was early in the game, starting to leave a few balls over the middle. Christian Yelich does exactly what he's supposed to do. He's talking to him, ground and third. Oh, yeah. Got to put the flaps down to slow down when you're running down that fast, Rich. You got to put the flaps down.
Preston, 4 consecutive hits here. Remember, it started with the Miguel Rojas double. D. Gordon, Martin Prado. Prado's drove in a run, and now Yelich.
I'm going to take you back one further. Adeiny Echeverria with that line drive to second base was a very hard hit ball.
That's a great point. So, the Marlins with 1 out here have roughed up Kershaw. I know it's just 2 runs, but for Kershaw, that's getting roughed up. And here's Stanton, who was 0 for 2. And Kershaw buries an off-speed pitch. It's 1-0. Stanton has bounced to third and struck out. Prado, see him bottom of your screen. He's at second. Yelich, the trail runner, with excellent speed at first. The outfield playing Stanton to pull. Stanton drives it right center field and deep and gone. 3-run shot, and the Marlins hang 5 on Kershaw here in the 6th inning. My goodness, what a bolt.
Center fielder Marcell Ozuna.
He is locked in now.
That's how you win. That's how you do it, motherfucker. Come on. Come on.
That ball left the bat. It was so loud I actually ducked. Oh my, it sounded like somebody shot a shotgun off at the plate just now.
Here is Ozuna. Clayton Kershaw, in 4 previous starts, had given up just 5 runs. And here in this inning, the Marlins have 5 runs. And Stanton has homered in 3 consecutive games. And Kershaw knew it. Breaking ball, a strike to Ozuna. 5-3 Miami.
I don't know if you can hear it at home, but if they play it again, the guys in the truck, if you could help us out. Listen to the sound of the ball coming off the bat. That's not normal.
Here's a listen.
He's not from around here, Rich.
Yes, he is. He's from right around the corner. He went to high school in Sherman Oaks at Notre Dame High School, and he used to sit in those same bleachers that he just reached in right center field.
Pitcher JT Realmuto.
Wow.
Something about this place Giancarlo loves. Good to come home.
Well, remember the last time Tom Kohler started? Kohler and the Marlins beat Max Scherzer. And Scherzer had a day that was not Scherzer-like. Kershaw looked like the 3-time Cy Young Award winner, the MVP, for the first 5 innings. But here in the 6th, the Marlins, with loud contact, big contact, and 5 runs. Stanton's 3-run homer, finishing that run of hits off. 5 consecutive hits. Real Muto is 0 for 2.
Last year, when Kohler squared off against Kershaw, the Marlins won that game as well.
Yeah, Kershaw with a good ERA, but not necessarily the record you would expect against the Fish. And Real Muto walks. So everything's out of whack now. Kershaw didn't walk anybody. Gave up just 1 hit and no runs. Now he's given up 5 hits and a walk and 5 runs, and the Dodger bullpen is just about ready.
This is one of those ambush innings. It happens so quickly, hit after hit. You don't expect to get that many hits in a row against a guy like Clayton Kershaw. But you have to give these Marlins hitters credit for staying ready and look for something in the middle, and they're putting some good swings out there right now.
Now Chris Johnson. Remember, we showed you early, Cody, Iggy was up, and it's no longer Iggy. Craig Breslow is up for Miami. So that changes everything. The Marlins were down 3-0. Now they're up 5-3. Breslow looks like he'll come in.
Coleman's up in the bullpen for the Dodgers. Right-hander. 3-quarter delivery.
Long way to go in this one, but what a turnaround here in the 6th. And Johnson swings and misses, and Kershaw walks off the mound. Giancarlo Stanton, a 3-run shot, finishes a 5-run 6th, and Miami is up 5-3. Grew up around and in this ballpark as a Dodger fan. Clayton Kershaw had been untouchable for 5. But the Marlins got 2. And then Stanton, a 3-run shot. So it's 5-3. But bottom of the 6th now, all attention turns to the mound. Miguel Rojas stays in the ball game, and he's going to go to first base. And Craig Breslow will pitch now for the Fish. Can the Marlins bullpen hold this lead against a Dodger team that comes in at 12-8? And remember, 2 games ago, put 12 on the board in a wild comeback in Colorado. Breslow's first pitch is fouled back and out of play. And for Breslow, it's been somewhat of a struggle of late. He was knocked around against the Giants, giving up 2 runs on 4 hits in just a third of an inning. And he misses away to Puig. And a different look certainly for the Dodgers, who have a lot of left-handed bats in there. Though it's Puig, then the switch hitting Grandal, then the lefty Crawford here in the bottom of the 6th inning. The ball and 2 strikes. Sauce wants to know, Preston, have you ever heard someone hit the ball as loud as Stanton does? Every home run sounds amazing.
Well, there's some guys who definitely have a different sound with the ball coming off their bat. Barry Bonds, Carlos Delgado, Mark McGwire, guys who have that power and tremendous bat speed. Gary Sheffield, he was one that the ball just sounded like a rocket.
Bouncer to short, 2 hops. Echeverria on the first in time. Breslow has the first out of the 6th inning. Marlins and Dodgers. This is a 4-game set here.
Catcher number 9, Yasmani Grandal.
And tomorrow, Marlins Live, South Florida Honda dealers. Trace Thompson is there, and Jessica will be hosting, and he'll have a look at the Splash Brothers. We called them last night. Jess, have you had a chance to spend time around Trace Thompson, whose brother is Klay Thompson? Other brother played in the NBA, and dad, of course, a longtime Laker.
That's right. I had a great conversation today with Trace Thompson. And Rich, like you mentioned, he comes from such an athletic family.
Grandal is going to get a hit off the glove of Prado.
And that's one of the things we talked about, the fact that he does come from a family of basketball players, how he ended up in baseball. I also wanted to know, of everyone in his family, who is the most athletic? He had a chance to answer that too, so that's all going to come up tomorrow on our Marlins Live pregame show, so you'll want to tune in for that.
Oh, now wait a minute. Are we going to be surprised by that answer, or is he going to say himself?
You know what? A little bit of a combination of everything. He answered not only who was the most athletic, but who was the most accomplished athlete, and one of his answers is actually pretty surprising.
Huh. All right, here's Carl Crawford. You got Jock Peterson on deck. Dodgers went decidedly right-handed against Chin last night. And Breslow in. We'll see if Dave Roberts adjusts in the late innings. Hit hard. Echeverria dive. And he throws the first. Rojas has to knock it down. Terrific play by Echeverria. A shot at a double play, but his throw was offline.
This is a great play on the catch, but I also love what Miguel Rojas does here. He doesn't try to hang on to the bag too long trying to make that play. Realize it's an errant throw, gets off the bag, blocks it up. You're still in a good situation here with a man on first.
Alessa wants to know, Will you fly my partner Tracy out for the last 2 games? The Dodgers are 0-6 when she's at Dodger Stadium.
I think that's a question for our people up top.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest, Preston. You just blew our entire production budget on Dodger dogs here in the last break.
I did. I felt like we got 5 runs, so I didn't feel as guilty about eating a Dodger dog.
There's like 5 wrappers on the desk here. I wondered why you weren't saying anything, and now I look over and now I know why.
I was teaching that Dodger dog a lesson.
Here's the 1-0 to Peterson. And Breslow steps off. Breslow gets a strike. So you came up, Sauce's question about ball sounding different off the bat for Stanton. Sheffield was the guy that you came up with. He was a teammate of yours.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the guys who the ball just sounded so loud whenever you hit. Like I said, Carlos Delgado comes to mind, just hearing that sound off of his bat.
Here's the 1-1. That one is deep. Right center field. Will it stay in? And it does. And Ozuna makes the catch. Wow. Jock Peterson gave it a ride. Giancarlo and Ozuna. A little bit of a relief there. Late night with a fish. In Los Angeles tonight, the Marlins were down 3-0 to that man. He given up 1 hit and struck out 8, and he looked untouchable. The last time, 5 straight hits for the first time in his career. Wow. And that includes the postseason. He's never had 5 consecutive hits against him. And the last time he's given up 5 runs in an inning in this ballpark, you have to go back to 2010. Here's Echeverria and a fastball up. And just to show you what type of guy Kershaw is, he's back out there for the 7th.
I love the fact that he's back out on the mound. 92 pitches.
Echeverria in the air. And that's Puig who makes the catch.
It's one of the things that's missing out of baseball is starters wanting to stay in the game. I believe some of the pitchers now are so coddled that when they reach a little bit of adversity, the first thing they do is look to the dugout for the manager to come bail them out. Clayton Kershaw is built a little bit differently. He's got a different makeup. He wants to be on the mound to the bitter end, and he's not going to let one bad inning take him out of a ball game.
Rojas, a big swing and a pop-up. You know, I guess it was indicative of the way that inning unfolded, but it wasn't like he threw 35 or 40 pitches. It was bang, bang, and then kaboom, the Stanton home run. The Marlins pounding out 5 consecutive hits. Stanton a 3-run homer to finish the barrage. And it happened so quickly. All right, he had 31 pitches, but
it was still quick.
All right, thank you. The 5 consecutive hits were quick. There's a roller out to short. Seager on his way to first in time. Bring your group to Marlins Park. Personalized experience. Spend quality time with your guests. If you're in the Cleveland, you might get a Giancarlo Stanton home run. Or actually anywhere in the outfield, even up, center field, 500 feet away. 1-877-MARLINS. Go to marlins.com/groups. Here's D. Gordon, and remember Gordon's smash that hit Kershaw. Gordon put it in gear and just beat the throw to first for an infield hit. He shortens the bunt. By the way, you were talking about in Sauce's email, he wanted to know other guys who the ball off the bat sounds like. If you've ever watched Ken Burns' baseball documentary, it's a great bite from the immortal Buck O'Neil, who should be in the Hall of Fame, about that and the generations. And of course, Buck O'Neil, the great thing about him is he spanned all those generations. And he has this great bite about the first time he ever heard the ball off the bat that sounded different, it was Ruth. The next time he heard it, years later, it was Josh Gibson. That one to left, hit pretty well, and it's over the head of Carl Crawford. And D. Gordon with a line drive double. And the Marlins with a 2-out hit. And so Buck O'Neil saw Ruth play. He saw Gibson play. And he said the next time he heard that sound at a ballpark, it was Bo Jackson.
Yes, absolutely. Bo Jackson was just one of the most talented people I've ever seen. He had, I don't know if he still does, but when he was playing, he had the fastest time ever recorded out of the right-hand batter's box to first base.
Yeah, he was amazing, and sadly his career cut short by the injury when he was a Los Angeles Raider, that hip injury.
He was one of the few right-handed batters that a second baseman actually didn't play that deep on. The second baseman would play a little bit more shallow because he got down the line so quickly.
Gordon, a big lead. Now the Marlins would love to pick up some insurance here. And don't look past the importance of Prado's hit in the 6th. His knocked in the first run of that inning. And Martin had not had success against Kershaw in his past. Yelich is on deck. 100 pitches to Clayton Kershaw. He threw 116 in his last start. He's been over 90 in all 4 starts. In the dirt, good take by Prado. Prado comes back after paternity leave. And he walks back in, and it's just a reminder of what the Marlins missed while he was gone. His average at 340. His on base up around 380. So he's been productive at the plate. He's a leader in the clubhouse, on the field. And that pitch misses in. Three and one. Dave Roberts, lineup card in hand. He's got a right-hander ready with Yelich on deck. That's a strike outside corner. Prado didn't like it. Whether he's just angry that Kershaw hit the spot, which he did. That's a perfect pitch.
It's just one of those where the catcher has to reach so far because the catcher was setting up inside that it looked worse than what it was.
All right, 3 and 2. Let's see what Prado gets. Breaking ball, Prado to left, hits it well. Crawford is back at the track, makes the catch. Prado just missed it. 5-3 Marlins, 7th inning stretch. Dodger Stadium. Everybody up. 5-3, Marlins on top. At 5-run 6, the difference in the ball game. Fish Family, the exclusive loyalty program of Marlin fans. To learn more, log in. Go to marlins.com/fishfamily, and the bonus code is Jackie Robinson. Craig Breslow, Marlins are hoping to coax another inning out of him. He looked good in the 6th. Kike Hernandez pinch hits for Kershaw in the bottom of the 7th. You got Chase Utley and Corey Seager to follow. And Breslow, slow breaking ball. Kike takes a strike. Hernandez much better against lefties than righties. And aggressive swing and an 81-mile-an-hour changeup.
Well, when you see a lefty on the mound, the odds are Kike Hernandez is going to get to the plate at some point. He's having a great year against lefties. Got to start last night against Chin. Didn't have success, but overall has punished lefties throughout his career.
To right, Stanton has it. Here's one of the oddities, and you know, you can look at all the statistics you want and break down run differential and things like that in trying to measure the value of a team and how good they are. Iggy and Morris in Miami's bullpen. The Marlins come into this ballgame at 7-11. That's 4 under. That's not a good start, but it's early. They're 5-4 on the road. That's, you know, you're over 500 on the road. I know it's early. It's just 9 games. But the teams that they've played on the road, I think, are significant. They're 5-4 on the road. The teams they've played on the road, the Mets, they're good. The Giants, they're good. The Nationals, they're really good. And now the Dodgers, they're good. Of course, solving the woes at home is another story. But I think for Don Mattingly, that illustrates that this is a team that when it's playing well can play with the best in the league, as they have when they're on the road. They've certainly got to solve a 2-7 home record. Utley takes out. Chase Utley getting a start. He's popped out. Bounced into a fielder's choice. And then he walked and scored. That's the other oddity of this game. The Dodgers got 2 runs out of the chute without a hit. 3 walks, 2 wild pitches, and a throwing error in the first. And you have to give credit to Tom Kohler, who hung in there.
Was a really rough start, but in true Tom Kohler fashion, stayed in there, made pitches, fought himself back in the game, limited the damage to only 3 runs. And now he's in line for a win, Rich.
5 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs, 2 earned, 4 walks, and 3 strikeouts for Kohler. And now Breslow misses away. Kohler threw 88 pitches. Kershaw done tonight. He threw 104 pitches and struck out 10. And is still thinking and wondering what hit him in that 6th inning.
Fan right below us in the Clayton Kershaw jersey just made a really nice catch on that foul ball.
Well, he did win a Gold Glove. Utley got out in front and hooks it foul and into the seats. All right, I know that we've strayed from the email and Twitter chain. R wants to know, how many angry rant tweets and emails have you gotten tonight? Now, we've got a few. We usually have our angry emailer of the night. We'll have to select that one. Maybe it can be you. Rojas makes the catch. Utley pops out. And there's 2 outs. Boy, if the Marlins can get a couple scoreless out of Breslow here, build a bridge to the 8th. I guess the next question would be, as Don Mattingly is out talking to Breslow, yeah, I mean, he was out there so quick, it didn't look like he was out there to make a move.
Shortstop number 5.
If the Marlins can build a bridge to the 8th, is Phelps available and Ramos available? Remember, they've worked 2 consecutive days in tandem for the wins in San Francisco and here in Los Angeles last night.
That's a great question. They were both really efficient last night, but when you talk about that 3rd day in a row, that's when managers really are tentative about putting those guys back out there for that 3rd day. Got to look at Brian Morrissey in the bullpen just now getting loose.
Liner to left, and that's a base hit for Corey Seager. Turner is coming up, Justin Turner, and I don't know that he's going to get to face Breslow. You would think Morris would come in for him. Tim Wallach, bench coach. Juan Nieves, you see the pitching coach with the clipboard. And here comes Mattingly. You're the man that took the Dodgers to 3 consecutive postseasons for the first time in franchise history the last 3 years. Is going to perform a West Kendall Toyota call to the bullpen. Gives Don Mattingly an inning and 2/3. And now the Marlins are hopeful that Brian Morris can get Justin Turner here. Turner, a guy that has the power with one swing to tie this game up with 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th. You see Morris has worked 10 games already. This is game number 11 for the sturdy right-hander. Five-run innings, most in the National League. The Dodgers are the leaders. Speaking of 5-run innings, one of our tweets is from Uncle Luke, Luther Campbell, who said, "I'm the Marlins' lucky charm. They're down 3 and they score 5."
That's a great tweet to get from Uncle Luke. You know, when I was younger, I wasn't allowed to listen to his music with good reason, but
it's late night, so we can do that. There's a strike.
But he's been doing some incredible things in South Florida with the youth programs, coaching football teams, very active in the community, and just goes to show you can't judge a person by their art. You know, you don't think Arnold Schwarzenegger's a murderer because he's killing a whole bunch of people in the Terminator movies. Music is an art, and he's doing great things. So to be able to separate him from that, I think people need to be aware of it.
That one's fouled back. Well, Preston, I got news for you. My art was awful in school, so maybe you're not right about that. Maybe you can tell something about someone's art. 0-2 to Turner, and Morris hasn't fooled around. He's come right out to get a couple strikes. Adrian Gonzalez is on deck. Hit hard. Prado to second in time. And the Marlins bullpen takes care of the 7th. 5-3 Fish.
Lead for the Marlins. Martin Prado back with the Fish as a brand new father, and for Prado, these past few days have been an adventure.
We got to San Fran, and I got the call around 3 o'clock in the morning, so I was trying to call everybody. Everybody was so sleepy, and fortunately for me, my agent and everything was in the other side of the country, so they could have find a ticket for me to get on time. And actually, I made it there, so that was pretty excited for me, and pretty excited 3 days, and finally I got some rest last night.
And guys, you can see the look on Prado's face. He absolutely lit up when it came to talking about being a first-time dad.
Well, that's cool stuff. Thank you, Jessica. J.P. Howell is in to start the 8th. We do have an angry emailer of the night. Breaking ball, a strike. As J.P. Howell takes over, Yelich, Stanton, Ozuna, probably for just one hitter. There's a right-hander ready in the Dodger pen, and you got Stanton on deck. But we'll see. Yelich had a big RBI single against Kershaw in that 6th. And a breaking ball for a strike. The angry emails from Ed in Tallahassee. Rich and Preston, why do you have to give Kershaw so much credit? He ain't so good. Now he's in line for the loss. I'm not impressed. I think Ed may just be trolling us to get on the show.
I think so. Either that or Ed's having a moment that he needs to go get some medical attention over. I'm going to leave that one alone, Rich.
No, that's all right. I think it stands on its own merits.
Yes, it does. However that may be.
Now, I don't think that's Eduardo from Tallahassee. Because Eduardo played there, right? Florida State.
Yeah.
But I'll bet you he's watching somewhere. Pitch misses out. This, Ed, is why he's so good. Do you have 3 Cy Youngs, Ed? How many times have you been an all-star? Ed? Gold Glove, check. MVP, check.
National League in ERA.
Triple Crown in 11. Oh, man, Yelich is just swinging it so well. A line drive to left. 2 more hits tonight. And that ball wasn't even in the glove of Carl Crawford. Dave Roberts was on his way out to get the right-hander to face Stanton.
Look at a head shake by Jay Howell. That's a good-looking swing right there. Nice and quiet. Bat flies through the zone because the body's not getting in the way of that swing.
West Kendall Toyota called to the pen. Miami a 5-3 lead in the 8th. Dodger Stadium tonight, where Clayton Kershaw was shutting out Miami until the Marlins exploded for 5 runs in that 6th inning, and it was capped off by a Giancarlo Stanton home run. Los Angeles goes to their bullpen. Lewis Coleman, whom the Marlins saw last night. Coleman takes over for J.P. Howell with Yelich, who can run at first, and he dives back, and Stanton, who can hit. Boy, can he hit right now at the plate. 3-run homer to right center, a no-doubter that sent Kershaw sprawling to his knee. And the Marlins to a 5-3 lead. A little crossfire breaking ball for a strike. Slider goes to the screen, and Yelich moves up. So with this crossfire action, a real test for Stanton for the sliders. Up until Sunday, sliders for about a week's time really gave him problems. But he had a real thoughtful interview last night which was nicely done by Jessica Blaylock, talking about, you know, just staying patient, his process of pulling out of it.
Well, it sounds a little counterintuitive, but as a hitter, the later you start to get ready, the quicker you're going to have to pull the trigger. So right now, his setup is a lot more smooth. He's getting ready earlier, so now he can let the ball travel longer, and it's not that emergency swing or swinging before the ball even gets to the plate.
Breaking ball, and that's a pop-up. Gonzalez has room and makes the catch. And Coleman has the first out. And that brings up Marcell Ozuna. Jim in Boca, who's a big Marlins fan, wants to know who eats more during a telecast, Preston or Eduardo?
It's not even close. I'm crushing Eduardo in that department. Come on, man. You know I got to get my snacks in.
The amazing thing about you is you're so well dressed. You have one of the best ties of the year on, and you've spilled nothing. None of the Dodger dog shrapnel stayed on your shirt. Pitch misses to Ozuna. Triple for Ozuna. That was the only hit the Marlins had against Kershaw, and that was in the second inning. Look at this tie. Show everybody your tie.
Let me get a look at this thing.
Look at that.
Pretty proud of it, Rich.
That's one of the best ties of the year. In fact, I nominate that for tie of the year. We should have the problem is if we just like in Hollywood, if we just nominate the best ties of the year, it's all going to be Preston.
Rich, you know why I can wear this tie and not use a napkin when I eat?
Why?
Because I believe in myself.
Here's a 1-1 to Ozuna. Yelich a nice lead at second. Ozuna high fly ball. That's Puig. Yelich tags. Puig makes the catch and thinks it's the final out, I guess. I'm not sure. Yelich gets to third. Puig made the catch and then kind of put his head down as if he forgot about Yelich. Watch this. Now, he's got the great arm, right? I mean, it's one thing to not throw. It's another thing to just put your head down.
Yeah, that's one of those moments where game starts getting a little bit long and have a few long innings. And as an outfielder, you really have to fight to keep your focus. And he absolutely just lost count of the outs.
Now, it's significant with Coleman on the mound because he's already thrown one to the screen. And he throws that crossfire slider. And so Yelich is just 90 feet away with 2 outs. And it's one of those balls where if Puig was near foul territory, he might have tossed it into the seats.
This is true.
So here is Real Muto. Hit by a pitch his last time up. And Yelich with 2 outs is at third. 8th inning. Miami in LA up 2. There's a slider, not a swing. Ichiro is on deck. That's the pitcher spot. Remember, Miguel Rojas stayed in the ball game after his pinch hit double. Real Muto, center field. Peterson dives and he doesn't get it. And the Marlins have another run. And you can thank Yasiel Puig for having a hand in it. Now, maybe Yelich scores from second, but still easy to score from third.
Yeah, I think Yelich definitely scores from second, but when that run scores, a mental lapse like Puig had definitely looks a whole lot bigger. It's a big run. That third run to tack on against the Dodgers tonight is a big run.
And here is Ichiro. And a fastball, a called strike. Ichiro, this is for Ichiro, as far as National League parks go, a really good one. He likes to hit at Dodger Stadium. 349 in his career. It's his highest average at any National League venue. And a breaking ball, he bangs off his foot. It's 0-2. Ichiro, 2,942 hits, so he's 58 away. Frank Robinson is next. Realmuto, the runner at first base.
Well, that run was credited to J.P. Howell, and for these left-handed specialist type guys, if you don't get that one batter that you come in the face sometimes, and that run ends up scoring, that does a lot of damage to your ERA.
Ichiro drives it down the right field line. It's deep and foul. And it's 1-2. All right, let me throw this out, and feel free to slap me if you want. Does Coleman pitch Realmuto differently with Yelich at third as opposed to Yelich at second? He had a wild pitch already that moved him up on a slider that he bounced outside. He hung a slider that Realmuto got and poked into center. Ichiro, and that's a foul ball.
I have to say definitely yes, because as a pitcher who uses his breaking ball as an out pitch, you're less likely to want to throw that ball nasty in the dirt when a guy's on third. As opposed when he's on second, you feel a little bit more free with it because either the catcher's going to block it, or even if it does get away, that base runner's not going to go from second all the way to home on a wild pitch. So it really does put the thought in the mind for the pitcher that even though I want to throw a breaking ball here, I can't make it that nasty in the dirt type breaking ball because I may give up a run if the catcher can't corral it.
All right, let me go one step further. If Puig gets around that ball and gets set up to throw, does Yelich go for third?
I think it was deep enough that Yelich is going to go because he's one of the faster runners on the Marlins roster. But Puig has an arm.
Ichiro, left field. That's a base hit, and he's another step closer. And hello, Frank Robinson. Ichiro ties Frank Robinson, 33rd all-time.
Vintage Ichiro. Swinging, just letting that ball get deep, slapping it through the 6-hole. I get tired of people talking about pretty swings. It works. There's a lot of pretty swings sitting on the couch at home. That's a good swing because it works.
There's nobody that swings the bat like Ichiro. I mean, in more ways than one. Echeverria takes a breaking ball for a strike. I mean, Ichiro's swing, you can't teach that. He moves his head a foot in his swing. It's something that all hitting coaches would say, don't ever, ever try to copy this, emulate this.
He actually had one of his early managers want to change his swing. Yes. And then he went and spoke to someone else, and they're like, no, don't change a thing. Stay how you were. Your swing works. And, geez, what, about 4,000-something base hits connected between the Japanese Baseball League and here? Say it works.
Yeah, that was his first manager that did not promote him to the Japanese major leagues, put him in the minor leagues because of that. 0-2. Etch up the middle, Utley a scoop. Seager gets there, but Miami adds an important run. 6-3, Marlins, bottom 8. Tomorrow's starters, Justin Nicolino gets the ball. Jared Cozart sent down to New Orleans today. Scott Kazmir for the Dodgers. So it's Nicolino and Kazmir, lefties both, on display at Dodger Stadium. And we've got that ball game right here on Fox Sports Florida. Kyle Bearclaw is out of Miami's pen. Bearclaw, since his recall, 6 appearances, has yet to give up an earned run. He gets Adrian Gonzalez, Yasiel Puig, and Yasmani Grandal. We have a lot of different emails. Once you get really late night with the fish, and you get past midnight, they get strange. And Silky in Gainesville has this one. Preston, maybe you can handle it. Best wrestler of all time, is it Stone Cold, The Rock, or other?
Oh, man.
And well, maybe we should try Silky again. Stanton laid the smackdown earlier on his home run. Is The Rock the greatest of all time, or is it Stone Cold? Maybe Flair. I got nothing.
See, I'm going a little older than that. I'm going to guys like Junkyard Dog and Tony Atlas.
I got nothing for
Chief
you.
Wahoo McDaniel. See, I like the old wrestlers.
Sorry, Silky.
The new wrestlers are, I don't know, they don't quite do it for me. And I like the Andre the Giant days. I like those days in wrestling.
Yeah. Line drive, left field line. Now, did you ever wrestle as a kid? Did you ever impersonate a wrestler?
You know what? My younger sisters can tell you that I would body slam them on the couch when they were kids. On the couch pillows, Rich. Yeah, we used to have a lot of fun. I think one of my sisters blamed me for an injury from that.
2-1 pitch. Gonzalez swings and misses. Good pitch by Bearclaw. Didn't you meet The Rock in a Marlins game once?
I did. I had a great time. We were on the field with The Rock, and we all did the people's eyebrow, took a picture. I have it in my house in a frame. It's good stuff.
Thank you for that, Silky, the wrestling portion of the telecast. 2-2 coming to Adrian Gonzalez. And he fouls it back to the screen. What is the, there's a few other odd ones that have popped through. And I think Silky's the strangest. And a swing and a miss, and down goes Gonzalez.
Right fielder, number 66.
Toyota
Yasiel
brings
Puig.
you an inside look. Brought to you by the RAV4. Players lost to the disabled list this season. The Dodgers, holy smokes. That's this season. Well, I mean, the Dodgers have a lot of guys that had injuries from carry over from last year. Carl Crawford off the disabled list. Andre Ethier is still out. Brett Anderson, Mike Bolsinger, Alex Guerrero, Brandon McCarthy, Hyun-Jin Ryu, and Scott Van Slyke, who was a Marlin, it feels like a Marlin killer. He's had some big hits against the Fish. Here's Puig.
We're trying to go back to our wrestler question. Craig Minervini, our buddy, brought up a great point. Guy who's an ex-pro ball player. He actually played American Legion baseball right up the road from where I went to high school. Macho Man Randy Savage.
Preston, the wrestling portion of the telecast has already sunset here. It's already passed. So if you want to wait till next Tuesday, we'll have another wrestling portion on an email Tuesday next week.
Rich, I feel like because Vin Scully broke your heart, you're displaying some misplaced aggression right now.
I turned bitter on you. Ben has an email, wants to know, I just saw Vin, or actually I saw Vin earlier in the show, and there's a man showing him a card. Do you guys in the booth have a card person too? Sadly, we do not. We do not have a card. Look, here's our card person. Right here. Here you go, Preston.
Thanks, Rich.
That's how we, unfortunately, that's how we roll. Vin has got his producer, Boyd. So you now watch Boyd. Vin Lefty, that's impressive. I'm a lefty when I write.
So am I.
You're a lefty when you write, so that's all that we have in common. Wait a minute, I wore a pocket square, you wore a pocket square.
Yes.
So we got two things in common with Vin.
That's right.
But that's about it. Maybe we could get Boyd to come over here for half an inning. Well, Aaron Charlton back there, former ball player, former minor league pitcher, right, Aaron? Right-hander? Lefty? A righty. All right. You have nothing in common with Boyd then. Yasmani Grandal. And Bearclaw misses away. Storyline in this one for the Marlins. They were getting Kershaw'd big time. 8 strikeouts through 5 innings, no runs, 1 hit. And then it happened. The Marlins got a pinch hit double from Miguel Rojas, and it was on. An infield hit from D. Gordon. Martin Prado knocked and run with a hit. Yelich did the save, and then Giancarlo Stanton went right center with a blast, a 3-run homer. The Marlins added on to make it 6-3, and the bullpen has been terrific. Craig Breslow, Brian Morris, and now Kyle Bearclaw. And that's after 5 innings of Tom Kohler. So those of you that are just wandering in for the night or just getting up to head out on South Beach. 2-2. Pitch misses out. You've missed a terrific one. Stick around. We'll have all the highlights on Marlins Live as the Marlins look for their 3rd straight here in Los Angeles. Not an easy man to strike out. One of the toughest in baseball. Actually, 4th toughest. And Bearclaw gets him and works a 1-2-3-8. In Los Angeles, Marlins have a 6-3 lead, top 9. And they'll be facing a familiar arm and a familiar face here at Dodger Stadium. And the crowd of 41,000 has, well, many of them have left for the freeway. Chris Hatcher, former Marlin minor league catcher, turns, actually major league catcher too. Hatcher, I think the first guy since like the 40s or the 30s to get to the big league as a catcher and then get back as a pitcher. Hatcher with obviously a strong arm, pitched for the Marlins, and a Dodger for the 2nd straight year. I had a chance to say hello to Hatch before the ball game. He still has a lot of friends on the other side of the diamond. And here is Miguel Rojas. 1935, Art Dole of the Boston Braves. John Solser, our producer. Christian Roberts, our critically acclaimed director. Ken Lee, our graphics coordinator. And Ron Grolnick on quality control tonight. Rojas, that double was enormous. That kind of dented the armor of Kershaw. And then 4 more hits followed, the last of which was Stanton's 3-run homer. And Hatcher, 96 at the knees. It's 1-1. Carlos wants to know, one day, can we have all 4 of you broadcasters for a game or maybe a series? We'll run it up the flagpole. Seager to first in time. Just emptying out the mailbag here in the 9th. Joel from St. Augustine. Will you guys be doing the Fox Sports Florida Fantasy Auction this year? Yes, we will. And that is on the I want to say the 26th of June. The Cubs on a Thursday night. Oh, I'm off by 3 days, sorry. 23rd of June. Where's Boyd? Boyd! 23rd, sorry.
You know, it was a really tough decision for the Marlins to part with Hatcher because they felt like he was right on the edge of really get ready to be special. Was starting to get really good command. The split finger was good. And you could see at the end of the year, his last year with the Marlins, that he just looked so sharp.
Hatcher last year with the Dodgers, 49 appearances, a 3.69 ERA. And he bounces one to D. Gordon. It's 2-1. Gordon had the infield hit in the 6th, then he doubled in the 7th. Marlins got an insurance run in the 8th. Real Muto knocked that one home. Hit hard, but Seager has it on a hop.
Third baseman number 14, Martin Prado.
Here comes Martin Prado. So A.J. Ramos is ready to go for the 3rd consecutive game. Ramos will run into the bottom 3rd of the order for the Dodgers. Hatcher against Prado. Martin's return to the lineup. 1 for 4, big RBI hit in the 6th against Kershaw. All right, have I left any emails out? I apologize if we haven't been able to get to yours. It's an amazing turn for this game. You had Kohler wobbling in the 1st. He walked 3, gave up 2 runs without a hit. Kershaw was dominant, gave up 1 hit, punched out 8 through 5. And the 3-0 lead felt like a 6-0 lead for Kershaw, didn't it?
It did. It seemed like Kershaw was cruising, had the game in hand. And then all of a sudden, the Marlin bats were able to put a few good swings out there. Adeiny Echeverria lined out to second. Then you got the big double by Miguel Rojas, and things just fell apart for Kershaw.
Of all the impressive Kershaw numbers we've read, here's just another to add to the list. Last 20 games, including postseason, when he's received 2 or more runs of support, 14-1 with a 1.28 ERA.
Wow.
But obviously that takes a dent tonight. The Marlins still need 3 outs to get the win. Kershaw absorbed those runs, and Prado fouls it back.
But it speaks to how dominant he is that we can say that 3 runs seems like it's enough for a guy. You know, that's not a lot of runs. But for Clayton Kershaw, the way he's pitched over his career, it seems like a lot of runs. It's a big hill to climb when he's on the mound.
Pitches down low. This is an interesting, because we do have one of the Splash Brothers here in uniform for the Dodgers. As Dave Roberts watches. Tony wants to know, what's more entertaining? Giancarlo's batting practice or Steph Curry's pregame shooting?
I think they're equally as entertaining because they're different sports, so it's really apples and oranges. But when you're seeing two people display talent that is unlike any other in their respective sports, you got to give them both a nod on that one.
Is that the email of the night? I mean, that it's I like it because it obviously talks about Stanton. It crosses over to Curry, but Klay Thompson's brother is a Dodger. He homered here last night, so it kind of, it's a very solid email there.
It is.
Probably better than the one that Yelich up the middle into center field. That's a base hit. My goodness. Christian Yelich just keeps hitting and hitting and hitting. He's been on base in every game. He's got 3 hits tonight. He's at or near the top in the National League in batting average and on base percentage. You think about what Yelich could have done last year with a healthy back. I mean, people thought, well, Yelich slumped through last year. He played through a miserable back injury. He finally went on the disabled list. And when he got back in June, all of a sudden, the hits and getting on base and the line drives all came back to him.
Nobody likes to struggle, but sometimes it's the best thing that can happen for you.
Here's Stanton. And he takes down low.
John Yelich benefited so much from struggling early and then learning that he can still climb back out of it and be good and have a productive season. He started off about as poorly as he has ever had in his life. He was hitting 200 in June, and to battle back and to hit 300 for the at the end of the season is amazing.
Well, for all the people that say, hey, players, guys get a little injury, they take themselves out of the lineup, and you hear some managers, general managers in any sport these days say players who get hurt don't like to come back unless they're 100%. You give Yelich credit for trying to play through the pain of a lower back injury last year. It affected his performance. It affected his average. But there's nothing that affects him right now, it seems. What do you do if you're Chris Hatcher here on a 2-0 pitch to Giancarlo Stanton with runners first and second and 2 outs?
Pray.
Fastball, Stanton took a rip at it, and Hatcher put it in a good spot.
That's about as well as you can locate a pitch. That's barely just off the edge. Lower part of the strike zone. That's a scary sight when he's going well, to see that look on his face.
3 homers in 3 games. Stanton's 3-run shot against Kershaw, his second against Kershaw in his career. Hatch with a nice off-speed pitch. It's the one thing that, when he first started pitching, he didn't quite have the feel for an off-speed pitch, a split, a change. He had that electric fastball, and as he has continued, you see, he always starts his grip with that split grip. As he's continued his career, he's gotten better and better with the secondary stuff. 2-2. Fastball up and in. And he really has spread it around against Stanton. Jonathan wants us to talk more wrestling. Hatcher wants a new sequence of signs. Jason feels that Stanton and the Rock are a great resemblance. 2-2. Check swing. Hatcher knocks it down and gets the out. The Marlins need 3 outs to capture what would be an extraordinary win tonight in Los Angeles.
Times I get into trouble, kind of taking lives off of people. You know what I mean? Everybody's kind of, getting heart attacks out there, and so I thrive in those moments, and I love those moments, but I'm gonna try to limit those.
Change up. Every spring I got to work on it and throw it a lot because it's such a touch and feel pitch, and if you don't have that right feeling, it goes away for a little bit. So it's about doing it repetition over and over and over, and I'm still working on it, but it always seems to come around. So.
Well, for the 3rd consecutive game, A.J. Ramos is in, and Ramos finished off the Giants on Sunday, the Dodgers last night, and tonight he goes for a 3-run save as the Marlins try to make it 3 in a row, and so does Ramos.
Well, he threw 20 pitches on Sunday, 20 pitches yesterday.
And he gets Carl Crawford to start. Fastball, chopper, 1 pitch, 1 out. Gordon gets the out at first.
That's a thing of beauty.
That'll slow down the workload. And you see the 20 and the 20.
Center fielder, number 31, Jock Peterson.
Jock Peterson now, who is 0 for 3.
And I got to think that if this were maybe a 1-run save, that Don Mattingly would be a little more uneasy about putting Ramos in tonight. But since he's got the 3-run cushion, I think that may have made the decision a little bit easier to run him out there that 3rd day.
Although, one thing that he has to do is have somebody ready. Say a few guys get on base. Peterson's on now. That one goes into the corner, and Yelich picks it up. I think you almost have to have an arm ready here, Preston, because in your 3rd straight appearance, he threw 40 pitches. Say all of a sudden he's in the middle of a 25-pitch inning, and as we can see, Jose Urena is in the pen now. Whether Urena is down there just getting some late work or if he's up just in case, we'll see.
I think it actually could be a little bit of both. Sometimes when a guy hasn't thrown in a couple days, you send him down there to get loose, but you also tell him if things get a little dicey, you're going in. So it could be kind of a side day, but with the intention of him going in if needed.
Well, Don Mattingly is hopeful, and so is A.J. Ramos, that we don't have to find out up here that the Marlins don't get to that point, that he can get Howie Kendrick and another out and secure what would be a very, very satisfying win for a team that's played well on the road. Kendrick swings and misses. And so Ramos with a nifty breaking ball is an out away.
That was nasty.
Second baseman number 26, Chase Utley.
Utley now. Utley now takes a strike. Checkers brings you Marlins Live. Jessica from the field. So far, big series for Giancarlo Stanton. Justin Nicolino's up. His season debut against Scott Kazmir.
Ramos has got the sharp slider working tonight. That ball is biting hard, and it's late.
AJ has a couple of outs. Peterson's aboard. Utley is up. You'd like to obviously get Utley and not let Seager come to the plate as the tying run. Two and one. Kohler, Breslow, Morris, Bearclaw, and now Ramos. Great bullpen so far after 5 innings of Tom Kohler. And that's going to move Peterson up to third. Ramos kind of finished that pitch on one knee, and we saw that a few times last night.
Well, that's the changeup that he threw there. I don't know whether he came off balance a little bit, kind of held on to it a little bit too long. But that's a pitch that he really likes. It's been a good pitch for him. Really, with 2 strikes, he throws it a lot these days. He's using that just as much as a slider in some situations.
He lost him. So Utley's aboard, and now Corey Seager comes to the plate. 10 pitches in is Ramos, his 3rd consecutive night, 20 pitches in San Francisco on Sunday, 20 more last night, 2 one-run saves in those games.
I don't see him going more than 1 or 2 more batters.
Well, the young shortstop, whose birthday is tomorrow, he'll turn 22, comes to the plate. At the corners, Utley's going to run to second on the pitch. And a swing and a miss. And a changeup.
There it is. Been a tremendous pitch for him this year. He spoke in the clip about it being a field pitch. Bounced that first one that he threw, but that one was money.
Oh, 1 pitch. Echeverria. Ball game. And what a game for the Marlins. They come roaring back to beat Clayton Kershaw with 5 runs in the 6th, highlighted by another Giancarlo Stanton homer. Ramos has 3 consecutive saves in 3 nights. The bullpen terrific, clutch hitting, and the Marlins, who are road warriors, now go to 6-4 on the road this year, and they're 2-0 in this series in Los Angeles. So a big night for the Fish on Late Night with the Fish.
Here now the totals for tonight's game.
And
Marlins, 6 runs on 11 hits, 1 error.
Ramos and the Marlins get the win. Marlins baseball, Fox Sports Florida, brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Transparency, low fares, nothing to hide. By Jeep, visit Jeep.com to learn more. And by your South Florida Honda dealers. In Los Angeles, 6-3 Marlins stick